My father was Yuan Shu, the man known to history as the Skeleton King. In my past life, I was a high-earning manager at a major corporation, surrounded by success and luxury. Then, I woke up in the year 196 AD, the chaotic final years of the Han Dynasty. I had become Yuan Yao, the only son of the most arrogant warlord in China. I knew the history. In just 1 year, my father would foolishly declare himself emperor. 2 years after that, he would be defeated and dead. If I followed the script, I had exactly 3 years left to live. I wasn't about to let that happen. I needed to save myself, and the only way to do that was to stop my father from losing his mind. Young master, Sun Tzu is doing exactly what you predicted, my steward, Yuan Zhong, whispered. I had ordered him to watch Sun Tzu's every move. I knew Sun Tzu was carrying a jade box, and inside that box was the imperial seal of the realm. Sun Tzu was coming to trade that seal for an army to conquer Jiangdong. He's heading to see the Lord right now, Yuan Zhong continued, his voice full of flattery. If he gives the seal to your father, it will be a blessing for the entire Yuan family. A blessing? I felt a cold shiver down my spine. It was a death sentence. The moment my father touched that seal, his ambition would turn into madness. Stay here, I snapped. I'm going to find my father. I hurried toward the main hall. My mind raced. I couldn't let Sun Tzu get those troops so easily. If he took Jiangdong, he would become our greatest rival. I had to intervene, even if I had to smash that seal into 1,000 pieces. As I entered the hall, I saw a young general in silver armor standing in the center. He was handsome and radiated a fierce, martial energy. This was Sun Tzu, the legendary Little Conqueror. He was currently putting on a masterclass in acting. My mother and uncle are trapped by Liu Yao. Sun Tzu cried, tears streaming down his face. If they are harmed, I have no face to keep living. I beg you, Lord Yuan, lend me a few thousand elite troops to cross the river and save them. Once they are safe, I will return and give my life to serve your great cause. I stood by the door, watching him. He was good. In this era, filial piety was everything. His request sounded perfect, but I knew the truth. He didn't want to save his family. He wanted to escape my father's thumb and build his own empire. My father sat on his high throne, stroking his beard. He was a practical man. He didn't care if Sun Tzu's mother lived or died. Sun Tzu, my father said smoothly. It's not that I don't want to help, but you are my general. If I lend you troops for a personal matter, I'll have to do it for everyone. My army would fall apart. Sun Tzu knew this was coming. He took a deep breath. I understand your position, Lord, Sun Tzu sobbed. But I cannot abandon my family. If you lend me the troops, I am willing to offer the imperial seal left by my late father as a token of my gratitude. The imperial seal. My father's eyes literally lit up. He had been obsessed with that treasure for years. To him, the seal wasn't just jade. It was a sign from heaven. It meant he was destined to be emperor. Where is it? My father demanded, his voice trembling. Bring it here. Sun Tzu stepped forward and presented the jade box. My father's hands shook as he opened it. Inside lay a magnificent square seal, 4 inches across, carved with 5 intertwined dragons. One corner was missing, repaired with solid gold. My father lifted it with reverence. He turned it over to read the 8 characters engraved on the bottom. Received from heaven, may he live long and prosper. His breathing became heavy and ragged. He looked like a man possessed, destined by heaven. He muttered, "That's me, Yuan Gonglu." He forgot all about the war, the politics, and the danger. He stroked the cold jade as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. After a long silence, he finally looked up at Sun Tzu, a wide, greedy smile on his face. "Sun Tzu, your devotion to your mother has moved me," my father said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "The Han Dynasty is built on filial piety. I will grant your request." I watched from the shadows, my heart sinking. The trap was set, and my father was walking right into it. I had to act now, or we were all dead. For a filial son like you, how could I refuse to help? I shall lend you 3,000 troops. My father, Yuan Shu, didn't get to finish his sentence. I pushed the heavy doors open and stepped into the hall. "Father," I called out, my voice cutting through the tension. "I just got here and saw Uncle Sun offering you the imperial seal. Could I have a look at it?" My father's face immediately broke into a wide grin. I was his only son, the absolute apple of his eye. He treated me like a fragile treasure, afraid I'd melt if he held me too tight or break if he let me go. He figured the seal would be mine one day anyway, so why not let me see it now? Yaoer, you came at the perfect time, he said, pride dripping from his voice. Come look. This is the imperial seal, a divine gift from heaven to our Yuan family. I took the jade box from his shaking hands. Beside us, I caught a glimpse of Sun Tzu. A faint, cold smirk played on his lips. He clearly thought my father was an idiot for being so obsessed with a piece of rock. I walked to the center of the hall, holding the seal up to the light. It was smooth, delicate, and radiated a brilliant luster. It was a masterpiece of jade, no doubt about it. It really is a rare beauty, I muttered to myself. Then I looked at my father. Father, do you truly believe this is a divine treasure? Of course, he barked, his eyes wide with conviction. He who holds the seal holds the mandate of heaven. I looked over at Yin Xiang, my father's chief advisor. He was shaking his head slightly, his face twisted in a mask of silent agony. He knew Sun Tzu was playing us, but he also knew that speaking against my father's obsession was a death sentence. Father, I said, my voice steady, I think this seal has nothing to do with destiny. To me, it's just a broken stone. The entire hall went dead silent. The generals and officials stared at me like I'd lost my mind. They knew I was a spoiled brat, a notorious playboy in the city of Shochuan, but I had never dared to talk back to my father like this. Sun Tzu's brow furrowed. I could see the gears turning in his head. He realized I was about to ruin his golden ticket. Yaoer, my father stammered, his smile fading. What did you just say? I said it's a rock, I repeated louder this time. The first emperor of Qin had this seal carved by Li Si. If it truly represented the mandate of heaven, how did his dynasty fall after only 2 generations? Sun Tzu's father, Sun Jian, found this seal too. Did he get the mandate? No. He died a violent, miserable death. The grass on his grave is probably taller than a man by now. Sun Tzu wants to trade a useless rock for the lives of our brave soldiers? It's a joke. Yin Xiang's eyes widened. He looked at me with newfound respect, clearly shocked that the useless, young master had such a sharp tongue. Sun Tzu, however, was turning a deep shade of purple. The veins on his forehead looked like they were about to pop. Yuanyao, you may be the Lord's son, but you will not insult my father. I just shook my head. It's not an insult if it's the truth. Father, I won't allow you to lend him troops for this. My father's face darkened. He loved me, but I was embarrassing him in front of his entire court. Yaoer, I already gave my word. Give me that seal this instant. I smiled. He wants to trade the seal for troops, right? Well, if the seal is gone, there's no deal to be made. Everyone looked confused. What did I mean gone? The seal was right there in my hands. Then, without a second of hesitation, I raised my arm and slammed the seal onto the stone floor with everything I had. The sound of shattering jade echoed through the hall. I looked down. It hadn't completely disintegrated, but another massive chunk had broken off the corner. It was sturdier than I expected. The room felt like it had been plunged into ice. My father looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Tears actually started welling up in his eyes. My seal, he wailed. You brat. You absolute monster. Guards, seize him. Take this boy away. He was beyond furious. He wanted to be emperor more than anything, and in his mind, I had just shattered his destiny. If I weren't his only son, I'm pretty sure he would have executed me on the spot. Sun Tzu stood there, his expression a chaotic mix of shock, rage, and confusion. He had prepared for 100 different outcomes, but he never imagined I'd just smash the damn thing. He looked like he wanted to draw his sword and gut me, but he knew he'd never make it out of the hall alive if he touched me. General Ji Ling stepped forward with a group of guards to grab me. I stepped back and pointed a finger at his face. Stay back. If any of you come near me, I'll bash my own head against that pillar and die right here. Ji Ling froze. The guards hesitated. I was the only heir to the Yuan family. If I died, the entire bloodline ended. Even if I just got a scratch, my father would likely have their heads for it. My father panicked. The seal was precious, but his son's life was his everything. Without an heir, what was the point of an empire? Besides, the seal wasn't totally destroyed. It could be patched up with more gold. Wait. Stop. Father scrambled out of his chair. Yaoer, don't be reckless. Calm down. Fine, it's just a seal. You broke it, so what? I won't punish you. Just move away from that pillar. Sun Ce looked like he'd been slapped. This was the treasure his father had died for, and now it was being dismissed like a broken toy. I looked my father in the eye. I broke it to show you that a piece of jade isn't a god. If you want to rule, you need talent. You need to take care of the people and strengthen the army. You can rely on your generals and your advisors, but you cannot rely on a broken stone. As I spoke, I saw Yin Xiang's eyes light up with a brilliant spark. For the first time, someone had spoken the truth in this house of delusions. My words hit Yin Xiang right in the heart. Ever since my father, Yuan Shu, had taken over Huainan, he'd become obsessed with pleasure and lost his ambition. Yin Xiang had been desperate to advise him, but didn't know how to break through. Seeing me stand up like this gave him hope. If I joined him in guiding my father, our chances of saving this family were much higher. But my father wasn't really listening to my lecture on leadership. He was just terrified I'd actually kill myself. He nodded frantically, his eyes full of worry. Yes, you're right, Yaoer. Everything you said is right, he stammered. How can a jade seal compare to my son? Yang Hong, quick, go pick up the seal and put it back in its box. Be careful with it. He turned back to me, his voice softening. Yaoer, did I scare you? Go back and rest. I'll come visit you in a bit. I had to give it to him. Yuan Shu and his brother Yuan Shao might have been terrible rulers, but they were world-class fathers. Yuan Shao once skipped a major military campaign against Cao Cao because his son was sick. My father only had me, so he treated me like the most precious treasure in the world. I'll take my leave then, I said, bowing deeply. As I turned to walk away, I caught Sun Ce's eye and gave him a small, deliberate smile. His face turned purple. The veins in his neck looked like they were about to burst. He clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. I could practically hear him screaming internally. You brat. You've ruined everything. If I ever become powerful, I'll have your head for this. Once I was gone, my father cleared his throat and looked at Sun Ce. Now, nephew, today was really Yaoer's fault. But you're older than him, practically his big brother. Don't take this little thing to heart, all right? Sun Ce looked like he wanted to explode. I had just smashed his family's greatest treasure, and my father called it a little thing. He took a deep, shaky breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He knew he had no leverage left. Since I gave the seal to you, uncle, it belongs to you, Sun Ce said through gritted teeth. You can do whatever you want with it. But, about the troops I asked for. The troops, my father waved a hand dismissively. There's no rush. Yaoer was shaken up today, and I'm worried about him. We'll talk about the troops tomorrow. Yang Hong, find the best craftsman to fix that seal with gold. It's a supreme treasure. We can't let anything else happen to it. Understand? Yang Hong bowed low, his face full of oily flattery. Rest assured, my lord. I won't fail you. My father dismissed everyone and rushed off to check on me. As Sun Ce walked out of the mansion, his face a mask of fury, a man in white robes met him at the gate. It was Lu Fan, one of my father's advisors who had secretly decided that Sun Ce was a better horse to bet on than the Yuan family. General, how did it go? Lu Fan asked. Did Lord Yuan agree to give you the soldiers? Sun Ce sighed heavily. He was about to say yes. Then Yuan Yao barged in and smashed the seal in front of everyone. Now my uncle is in a bad mood and told me to wait until tomorrow. If that brat interferes again, I'll never get those troops to Jiangdong. Lu Fan frowned, stroking his beard. Yuan Yao? Why would he block you? Do you have a grudge against him? Sun Ce shook his head, a hint of his usual arrogance returning. Yuan Yao has no ambition. He spends his days eating, drinking, and playing. Why would I waste time having a grudge against a mediocre fool like him? In Sun Ce's mind, he was a dragon waiting for a storm to fly, while I was just a loach in a muddy pond. Exactly like my father. A dragon doesn't pick fights with a loach. That's strange then, Lu Fan mused. The situation in Jiangdong is unstable. This is your best chance to take it. If we wait too long, things will change. Tomorrow, you must convince Lord Yuan. No matter what. And if Yuan Yao gets in the way again? Sun Ce asked. Lu Fan leaned in. If he doesn't have a grudge, then he's blocking you because he wants something. If he shows up again, let him set his terms. Whatever he wants, give it to him. Whatever he asks you to do, agree. As long as you take Jiangdong and build your empire, any price is worth paying. Sun Ce nodded slowly. I understand. Back in my room, it wasn't long before my father burst in to check on me. I looked at him closely. To be fair, he was a handsome man, noble, dignified, and commanding. The Yuan family genes had been refined for generations. He just didn't seem to have a brain to match. The Han dynasty was still technically alive. Powerful men like Yuan Shao and Chao didn't dare to overstep. They still claimed to be loyal ministers. Where did my father get the courage to think he could just declare himself emperor? Yawa, he said, looking me over. What happened today? Are you sick? Do I need to call a doctor? Why did you smash the seal? That's our family's treasure. His voice was urgent, but he kept it low, as if he was afraid of upsetting me. I felt a pang of genuine emotion. This man really loved his son. Because of that love, I knew I had to save him. I couldn't let him go down the same path of ruin he did in my previous life. If possible, I wanted to help him build a real empire. I didn't just want to survive this chaotic era. I wanted to end it. I wanted to build a world where people could live in peace. But first, I had to deal with my father. Father, I asked quietly, if the seal is such a treasure, don't you think Sun Ce knows that? Why would he give it away? He told us why, my father said, as if it were obvious. He wants to save his mother and his aunt. Giving up a treasure for his family, it makes sense. And you aren't afraid that once he has your troops, he'll never come back? That he'll take Jiangdong for himself and become a warlord? My father blinked, then laughed. My son, you worry too much. If Sun Ce conquers Jiangdong, that's good for us. He's my subordinate. He has no roots there, and the local elite families won't follow him. In the end, he'll have to come back to me. We get Jiangdong for free. Isn't that perfect? I realized he actually believed this. In my old life, if my father hadn't declared himself emperor and turned the whole world against him, Sun Ce might have actually struggled to break free. But I still didn't trust Sun Ce, and I definitely didn't want him taking Jiangdong if I could take it instead. So, you're set on lending him the troops? I asked. My father nodded. I gave my word today, and I took his seal. A leader can't go back on his promise. If I don't give him the troops, how can I command my army? I knew the truth. He just didn't want to give back that seal. But letting Sun Ce go to Jiangdong wasn't all bad. Jiangdong was a mess right now. Let Sun Ce go in and stir the pot. Maybe I could be the one to reap the rewards. Fine, I said. Borrowing him the troops is one thing. But people change. If Sun Ce develops his own ambitions once he reaches Jiangdong, it'll be too late to stop him. My father looked at me, confused. Then, Yaoer, what do you think I should do? In ancient times, when a general went off to war, he would leave his family behind as hostages. If Sun Ce wanted to borrow our troops, my father needed to make him leave a hostage as well. My father frowned, thinking it over. What you say makes sense, my son. But Sun Ce's entire family is currently in Shui. Even if I wanted a hostage, he has no one here to leave behind. I smiled confidently. Don't worry about that, father. I have a plan. When Sun Ce comes back tomorrow, let me meet him with you. I'll make sure he hands over a hostage. Fine, my father agreed. I'll leave that matter to you. He didn't really care how I handled Sun Ce. He already had the imperial seal in his hands, and he had promised to lend the troops. To him, as long as he kept the seal, everything else was a minor detail. In fact, he looked at me with a bit of pride. He seemed happy that his troublemaker son was finally growing up and taking an interest in state affairs. I could almost see the gears turning in his head. He was probably imagining a future where he became the founding emperor and I became the wise successor who maintained his legacy. That thought alone seemed to wash away any lingering anger he had about me smashing the seal earlier. Just as my father left, our steward, Yuan Zhong, entered the room. Young master, Minister Yanxiang is outside requesting an audience. Yanxiang? I perked up. The minister is here to see me? Quick, invite him in. Actually, wait. I'll go greet him myself. In my memory of this era, my father's court was filled with sycophants and useless idiots. There were only two people truly worth mentioning, one for war and one for politics. The warrior was Ji Ling, a man strong enough to fight Guan Yu for 30 rounds. The scholar was Yanxiang. He was the only one who truly understood the state of the world and had the courage to advise my father, even when my father didn't want to hear it. If a man like that was coming to see me, I had to show him respect. Since I was my father's only son, I didn't have to worry about him being suspicious of me building my own circle of influence. I walked out toward the gates. My father's mansion was massive and incredibly lavish. It felt more like a palace than a general's residence. It was a clear sign of his growing ambition. I found a thin, middle-aged man in brown silk robes standing outside my courtyard. I bowed deeply. Yuan Yao greets Minister Yinxiang. Yinxiang looked surprised. He had always thought of me as mediocre, but my performance today, smashing the seal and now showing such humility, clearly changed his mind. He quickly moved to support my arms. I cannot accept such a grand gesture from the young master. Please, stand up. I took his hand and smiled warmly. Minister, you wouldn't visit unless it was important. Let's talk inside. Yuan Zhong, bring tea. We sat down in the inner hall. Yinxiang looked at me with genuine admiration. Young master, your insight regarding the imperial seal today was truly impressive. To see that it is a useless object at such a young age, it's a shame so many of your father's officials cannot see the same. You saw it too, didn't you, minister? I replied, taking a sip of tea. My father was simply too enamored with it. You just didn't want to ruin his mood. He gave a bitter laugh. It's not that I'm afraid to speak. I'm afraid that if I speak too bluntly, he will exile me. And if I am gone, who will be left to stop him when he makes an even bigger mistake? But seeing you today, there is hope. With your courage and wisdom, the Yuan clan can truly flourish. Smashing a seal is just a small trick, I said seriously. For our family to survive, we need the help of loyal men like you. As for my father, I will do my best to keep him on the right path. We both knew the truth. My father had some talent in his youth, but since coming to Huainan, he had become arrogant and dim-witted. If he kept going like this, the Yuan family was headed for a cliff. It is a blessing for Huainan that you think this way, Yinxiang said. He then pulled out a scroll. I came today to ask for your help. I have written several strategies for the development of Huainan. I was hoping you could present them to your father for me. You are too kind, minister, I said, looking at the scroll. The world is in chaos right now. I actually have many questions myself. If my father truly wants to build an empire, what should be our first step? Yinxiang lowered his voice. Huainan looks wealthy on the surface, but under your father's rule, the people are suffering. Our priority must be internal stability. We cannot continue these endless wars and heavy taxes. I nodded. He was right. Huainan was a rich land, but my father was ruining it. He only controlled a few commanderies like Shouchuan and Lujiang, yet he was trying to maintain an army of over 200,000 men. The tax burden was crushing the peasants. They were either turning into bandits or fleeing to other provinces. My father didn't care. He relied on our family's famous name and spent his time picking fights with Liu Bei, Liu Biao, and Cao Cao. At this rate, we would collapse even without an invasion. We must rest and recover, Yinxiang continued. Furthermore, Huainan is surrounded by enemies. Your father should make peace with Liu Bu and Liu Biao. We should use the Yuan family's prestige to win over the elite families of Jiangdong. Only by securing the south can we have the foundation to compete for the world. I studied his plan and kept nodding. It was perfect. It was exactly what we needed. I knew why he wanted me to deliver it. If he said these things, my father would likely throw him out for being too soft. But coming from me, his son, he might actually listen. Yinxiang was a massive talent, but he wasn't enough. If I wanted to go toe-to-toe with the legends of this era, I needed a team. Minister, your vision matches mine, I told him. Don't worry. I will convince my father to adopt these policies. With me backing you, he will listen. Yinxiang looked relieved. He knew that in all of Huainan, I was the only one who could make such a promise. Actually, minister, I continued, I have a favor to ask of you as well. Anything, young master. If it is within my power, I will do it. I looked him in the eye. I need you to help me find more people. To govern Huainan and eventually the whole world, we need real talent. My father's current roster of officials, well, it leaves much to be desired. Trying to build a legacy with my father's current inner circle was a fool's errand. Yinxiang nodded in agreement when I said it. My father had plenty of officials, but calling them talents was a stretch. Honestly, I wasn't even sure they qualified as human beings. The civil officials were flatterers and snakes like Yang Hong and Huang Yi. The generals? Cowards like Chun Lan and Lei Bo, men who excelled at nothing but fleeing battle and bleeding the commoners dry through extortion. Yin Xiang had always felt that my father's downfall was directly linked to these sycophants. Unfortunately, my father trusted them more than he trusted Yin Xiang. He couldn't push them out, but I could. If I could elevate capable men and replace these parasites, Huainan actually had a chance. Finding talent isn't the problem, Yin Xiang said thoughtfully. Huainan is full of brilliant minds, but most of them come from humble backgrounds. Your father only values the elite noble families. Would you be willing to look past their birth? I didn't hesitate. I only care about talent. Everything else is irrelevant. My father, Yuan Shu, was an elitist. Born into a legendary family, he looked down on anyone without a pedigree. But I wasn't him. With my modern perspective, I saw the noble families for what they were, a cancer on the land. I wasn't strong enough to move against them yet, but one day, I would drag them down into the dirt. I need those humble scholars and warriors, I told him. If we don't recruit them, they'll just end up serving other lords. Bring me the scholars yourself, minister. As for the warriors, I have a different plan. I leaned in, a smile forming. I want to hold a grand tournament right here in Huainan. A martial arts competition to find the strongest men in the land. The best rise, the weak fall. What do you think? Yin Xiang's eyes lit up. It's a brilliant idea. Every warrior wants to make a name for himself. This will draw them in like moths to a flame. But a spectacle like that will be expensive. Just spreading the word across the region will cost a fortune. I waved it off. If money can solve the problem, it's not a problem. I'll get the funds from my father. Just make it grand. Let's call it the First Under Heaven Martial Arts Assembly. Yin Xiang chuckled. A bold name. No warrior will be able to resist competing for a title like that. After seeing Yin Xiang out, I felt the weight of my fate shifting. With real talent by my side, this wealthy land was finally mine to shape. The next morning, Sun Tzu arrived exactly as promised. As he stepped into the main hall, his eyes immediately locked onto me sitting beside my father. I could see the suspicion in his gaze. He knew I was the one pulling the strings now. Sun Tzu came prepared to bleed. He didn't know exactly what I wanted, but he had brought every treasure he owned. He was ready to go bankrupt just to get those troops. My lord, Sun Tzu said, bowing deeply to my father. My mother and uncle are in grave danger. I beg you to lend me troops so I may fulfill my filial duty. My father glanced at me and stayed silent. He wanted to give Sun Tzu the men and be done with it, mostly to stop the rumors that he'd stolen the Imperial Jade Seal. But he was letting me handle the negotiation. I smiled at Sun Tzu. General, using the Imperial Seal as collateral shows great devotion. But the seal is currently broken. Using a damaged relic to trade for my father's elite soldiers? That seems a bit unfair, don't you think? Sun Tzu's face turned a deep shade of purple. I could practically see the steam coming out of his ears. He knew damn well I was the one who smashed it. To have me use its condition as leverage was pure extortion, and he knew it. He was a ticking time bomb of rage, but he had to swallow it. The damage to the seal was my failure, Sun Tzu said through gritted teeth. Therefore, I have brought several treasures to make up for the loss. I hope they satisfy you. Now I was interested. I had planned to use the seal as an excuse to demand hostages, but if he was offering loot, I'd take both. My father, however, looked bored. He was one of the richest men in the world. He didn't think Sun Tzu had anything worth his time. Show us, I commanded. General Ji Ling led several guards outside to fetch the items. They returned moments later carrying 2 weapons that shimmered with a cold, lethal light. My lord, young master, Sun Tzu began, gesturing to the blade. This is the Guding blade, left to me by my late father. It cuts through armor like silk. And this is the Frost Dragon Spear, another heirloom. Finally, waiting outside is my father's stallion, the Shadowstreak White Dragon. He is the king of horses. I offer these 3 treasures, along with the seal, in exchange for your help. I was stunned. This was a massive haul. I needed a good horse, and these legendary weapons would be perfect rewards for the warriors I was about to recruit. Sun Tzu was being surprisingly generous. Your sincerity is clear, General, I said. My father won't go back on his word. You'll have your troops. Sun Tzu looked immensely relieved. I could see the thought in his eyes. I'll give them to you for now, but I'm coming back for them once I take the south. Thank you, my lord. Thank you, young master. I shall. Wait, I interrupted, my smile widening. I'm not finished. My father agrees to the deal, but you're a general taking an army into the field. Tradition dictates you leave your family here in Shochuan as a guarantee of your loyalty. Sun Tzu froze. Young master, my father is dead. My mother and siblings are the ones trapped in Chui. That is why I need the troops. I have no family left to leave behind. I'm sure you plan to return to Shochuan as quickly as possible, I said, my voice smooth and reasonable. And I trust your character, General. Truly I do. But rules are rules. Every general who leads an army into the field must leave their family behind as a guarantee. If I made an exception for you, the other officers would lose their minds. I can't have people thinking there's favoritism. Sun Tzu looked like he'd been slapped. He had clearly thought that handing over the imperial seal and his father's treasures would be enough to buy his freedom. Now he realized the cage doors weren't opening that easily. The desperation in his eyes grew sharper. Then what am I supposed to do? He asked, his voice tight. I smiled. If you don't have family here, a close associate will do. Someone you value. I've heard you have a childhood friend, a man named Zhou Yu, also known as Gong Jin. They say you two are closer than blood brothers. If you can bring Zhou Yu to Shochuan to stay with us, my father and I can sleep soundly knowing you'll return. That was my real target, Zhou Yu. In the history I knew, Zhou Yu was the brain behind Sun Tzu's conquest. If I kept him in Shochuan, Sun Tzu could never sweep across the south like a wildfire. More importantly, I wanted that genius for myself. I needed a man who could lead armies and manage a state, and Zhou Yu was top-tier talent. Sun Tzu's face went pale. He looked at me with newfound terror. He couldn't understand how I knew about his private relationship with Zhou Yu. He must have thought I'd been spying on him for months. Young master, Sun Tzu stammered. Gong Jin is my brother in spirit, but he isn't in Shochuan. I can't just. He's in Danyang. I interrupted, my smile widening. I've already checked. If you send for him now, he'll be here in a few days. Sun Tzu's composure finally shattered. He looked trapped. I need to think about this, he muttered. Of course, I replied. Take your time. But remember, the moment Zhou Yu arrives in Shochuan is the moment my father gives you those troops. Sun Tzu left the estate with a heavy heart. He had given up 2 legendary weapons and his favorite horse, and he still had nothing to show for it. Back at his own residence, his advisors Lu Fan and Zhu Ji rushed to meet him. When they heard my demands, they were outraged. That brat Yuan Yao, Sun Tzu cursed, pacing the room. I'll make him pay for this insult once I have the south. General, Lu Fan whispered, trying to calm him. Leaving a hostage is standard practice. If Zhou Yu is the price for an army, you should pay it. Once you've conquered the south, you can negotiate for his release. He won't be in any real danger. Sun Tzu hesitated. He hated the idea of using his best friend as a bargaining chip, but his ambition was clawing at him. I must go to Danyang myself, he decided. I need to speak with him face to face. He rode off immediately, but he didn't go on his legendary stallion. The Shadow Streak White Dragon was mine now. I spent the afternoon in the courtyard with the horse. It was a magnificent creature, pure white, intelligent, and powerful. Thanks to the memories I'd inherited from the original Yuan Yao, I knew how to ride. The old me might have been a spoiled brat, but as the heir to the Yuan family, he had been trained in the 6 noble arts: rites, music, archery, charioteering, calligraphy, and mathematics. I wasn't a world-class general yet, but I could handle myself in a fight. While I was leading the horse around, my father, Yuan Shu, walked in with his hands behind his back. Jing Yao, he said, using my courtesy name. We have plenty of good horses in the stables. Why are you so obsessed with this one? This was Sun Jian's mount, father, I said, patting the horse's neck. It's seen 100 battles. I want to ride it while I help you conquer the world and build your empire. My father beamed. He loved it when I stroked his ego. Spoken like a true lord. But remember, leave the charging and dying to men like Sun Tzu. We are the masters of the big picture. We stay behind the lines and command. I nodded, though I secretly rolled my eyes. My father's version of commanding usually involved making terrible decisions that led to disaster. I had to keep a close watch on him to make sure he didn't ruin everything. By the way, my father continued, you have the seal and the weapons. Why bother with this Zhou Yu person? He isn't even family to Sun Tzu. Why would Sun Tzu care? My father didn't understand loyalty. To him, if someone offered to trade his own brother, Yuan Shao, for power, he'd take the deal in a heartbeat. Father, Zhou Yu is a genius, I explained. His mind is like Zhang Liang's, and his tactics are like Han Xian's. That jade seal is just a piece of rock, but a man like Zhou Yu is worth 10,000 soldiers. If we get him, we win. Is he really that good? Father asked, skeptical. And even if he stays here, how do you plan to make him work for us? I have 100 ways to make him loyal, I said confidently. With 2,000 years of future knowledge, manipulating one ancient strategist would be easy. I wouldn't be a simp like Cao Cao was for Guan Yu. I had better methods. Anyway, Father, I'm planning something big. I need a bit of money from the treasury. Father waved a hand dismissively. Take whatever you need. Just tell Yuan Zhong at the vault. He didn't even ask what it was for. In the past, the original Yuan Yao had spent millions of coins on massive parties, poetry slams, and hunting trips. My father saw my big plans as just more expensive hobbies. He didn't realize that this time, I wasn't throwing a party. I was building an army. I am Yuan Shu's son, after all. If I want to spend a little money to change the world, who's going to stop me? I didn't think there was anything wrong with spending a little money. Was it really that excessive? My father, Yuan Shu, had no idea that this big project of mine was going to cost far more than any of my past hobbies. That same afternoon, I tracked down Yuan Zhong at the family vault. I didn't go alone. I brought a young scholar dressed in simple green robes. This was Buji, also known as Buzishan. He was a refugee from the chaos in Lini who had fled to Huainan. I knew exactly who he was from my knowledge of history, a future prime minister and a brilliant general of the Eastern Wu. Yin Xiang had found him for me. I was impressed by the old official's efficiency. I had only mentioned recruiting talent yesterday, and today, he hand-delivered a legend to my door. Mr. Bu, I said, stepping forward to help him up as he bowed. The fact that you are willing to assist me is my great fortune. I promise to use your talents to their fullest. I won't let your genius go to waste. I could see a flicker of warmth in his eyes. He probably expected me to be another arrogant, high-born brat who looked down on scholars. Seeing my respect, his posture straightened. I will do everything in my power to serve you, my lord, he replied. I turned to both Yin Xiang and Buji. All right, for this martial arts assembly, I'm setting aside 30 million coins. I've already withdrawn the first 10 million for promotion. We'll spend another 10 million building the arenas, and the final 10 million will be the prize money for the winners. What do you think? Both of them froze. They were visibly shaken by the scale of my spending. Yin Xiang had estimated we could pull this off with a few million, but I was raising the stakes to a level Huainan had never seen. I didn't care about the cost. A single legendary general is worth more than 10,000 average soldiers. Besides, it wasn't my money, it was my father's. As Yin Xiang and Buji left to begin the preparations, a young girl suddenly jumped out in front of me. Brother, caught you. It was Yuan Miao, my younger sister. My father had many children, but Yuan Miao and her twin sister, Yuan Wan, were my only full-blooded siblings, born to Lady Feng. Like our mother, who was once the most beautiful woman in the capital, my sisters were stunning. Yuan Wan was the quiet, elegant one, but Yuan Miao was a wild spirit, always looking for trouble. You took so much money from the vault, she said, leaning in with a mischievous grin. What are you up to? If you don't take me with you, I'm telling mother. I reached out and ruffled her hair. How old are you now? You're still acting like a crazy brat. Look at your sister, Wan Wan. She stays with mother and learns how to manage the household. Why can't you be more like her? Ugh, Wan Wan is so boring, she complained, trying to fix her messy hair. Staying home all day is no fun. I want to play with you. So what is it? Hunting? A massive banquet? Neither, I told her. I'm hosting the first Under Heaven Martial Arts Assembly in Shochuan. We're going to find the strongest warriors in the land and bring them into our service. Her eyes lit up. Fighting? I love watching people fight. It's way better than poetry. But isn't General Ji Ling already the strongest? I shook my head and smiled. Maybe, But there are many hidden talents in this world. We just have to find them. I wasn't wrong. Within days, the news spread like wildfire. Huge arenas began rising in the center of Shochuan. The announcement was everywhere. The son of the Yuan family was looking for warriors. It didn't matter if you were a commoner or even a reformed bandit. If you had strength, you had a seat at the table. To the common people, this was a dream. Becoming a general was usually reserved for the elite, but I was offering them a shortcut based purely on merit. The news traveled so fast it even reached Danyang, where Sun Tzu had just arrived to meet his best friend, Zhou Yu. Sun Tzu was desperate. He grabbed Zhou Yu's hand the moment he saw him. Gongjin. Zhou Yu, looking sharp in his white robes, gripped his hand back. Bofu, you've come to see me. Does this mean we are finally heading to Jiangdong to raise our army? Sun Tzu let out a heavy sigh. That was the plan. I was going to trade the Jade Seal for troops and bring you with me to conquer the south. But things didn't go smoothly. Zhou Yu frowned. Did Yuan Shu refuse the deal? That doesn't seem like him. He's too ambitious to turn down the seal. It's not Yuan Shu, Sun Tzu said, his voice tight. The problem is his son, Yuan Yao. Mentioning my name was enough to make Sun Tzu's blood pressure spike. He squeezed his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. He told Zhou Yu that I was a thief who had humiliated him at every turn, refusing to lend him troops despite his desperate situation. He recounted how I had smashed the Imperial Jade Seal right in front of my father, showing absolutely no respect for the legendary treasure. Even after he offered up his most precious personal weapons, I still wasn't satisfied. I had demanded his family as hostages. Sun Tzu was stuck. His mother and siblings were currently in Chuyi, and he had no way to bring them to Shochuan as collateral. Zhou Yu listened intently, his expression growing serious. He told Sun Tzu that I sounded like a complicated man. Very few people in this world could resist the temptation of the Jade Seal, yet I had treated it like trash. He had also heard about the martial arts assembly I was hosting to recruit warriors from the common folk. To Zhou Yu, these were signs that my ambitions were far greater than my father's, and that my ability far exceeded Yuan Shu's mediocre reputation. Sun Tzu didn't want to hear me being praised. He dismissed me as nothing more than a stubborn kid with a few clever tricks. He admitted I was stronger than my father, but he believed that once he conquered Jiangdong and became the overlord of the south, I wouldn't even be worthy of being his rival. His only problem was finding a way to get those troops and leave Shochuan. Zhou Yu had a sharp intuition. He could tell Sun Tzu was holding something back, something he was too embarrassed to say out loud. He asked Sun Tzu to speak plainly and tell him how he could help. Sun Tzu sighed, his face full of guilt. He confessed that I had somehow found out about their brotherhood. I knew Zhou Yu was Sun Tzu's closest ally, and I had demanded that Zhou Yu himself come to Shochuan as a hostage in exchange for the army. Sun Tzu was torn. He couldn't bear the thought of betraying his best friend. To his surprise, Zhou Yu just laughed. He told Sun Tzu it wasn't a problem at all. If I wanted him in Shochuan, he would go. Sun Tzu was shocked, worried that he was putting his brother in a death trap. But Zhou Yu remained calm. He pointed out that Shochuan wasn't a dragon's den. His uncle, Zhou Shang, was the governor of Danyang and a high-ranking official under my father. For the sake of etiquette and politics, the Yuan family would have to treat him with respect. He urged Sun Tzu not to waste this chance to build his legacy in Jiangdong, while the current governor there, Liu Yao, was still proving himself incompetent. Zhou Yu promised he would find a way to escape once Sun Tzu had secured his power. With Zhou Yu's agreement, Sun Tzu's biggest headache was cured. He bowed deeply to his friend, thanking him for the sacrifice. They immediately set off for Shochuan. Meanwhile, I had finished all the preparations for the first Under Heaven Martial Arts Assembly. The city was buzzing. After days of promotion, the excitement in Shochuan had reached a breaking point. Everyone from high-ranking officials to common street vendors was waiting for the show to start. I had built a massive arena right in the heart of the city's busiest district. It was grand, spacious, and surrounded by enough room to hold 10,000 spectators. I wasn't going to make the wealthy elites cram in with the commoners, though. I had rented out all the tea houses and restaurants surrounding the square, turning their balconies into VIP viewing decks. If you had the money, you didn't have to push through the crowds. You could sit in comfort, drinking fine wine while watching the fights. I auctioned off these seats to the highest bidders, and the local lords and wealthy merchants snapped them up instantly. Before the first fight even began, I had already made back half of the 30 million coins I spent organizing the event. My own seat was on the second-floor balcony of the Taifu restaurant, the best vantage point in the city. The table in front of me was piled high with delicacies. My advisor Yin Xiang and my two sisters, Yuan Wan and Yuan Miao, sat with me while my butler, Yuan Zhong, stood by to serve us. I raised a cup to Yin Xiang, thanking him and my general, Xiao Rue, for their hard work. Yin Xiang toasted back, noting that the warriors below looked full of spirit. He was confident I would find the talent I was looking for. Down on the stage, Xiao Rue stepped forward. His voice boomed across the square as he announced the start of the assembly. He explained that I was looking for the best of the best to lead our armies. The winners wouldn't just get titles. They would get special rewards from me personally. Since there were over 400 participants, the first round would be a brutal elimination. We grouped them in sets of 20 for a massive free-for-all. To keep them from killing each other too quickly, no weapons were allowed, just bare fists. You lost if you surrendered, got knocked out, or were thrown off the stage. Only 3 from each group would move on. The first 20 warriors climbed up, and the chaos began immediately. These men were fighting for their futures, and they didn't hold back. Punches landed with sickening thuds, and bodies were sent flying off the platform. The crowd went wild. Even the snobbish young masters in the VIP seats felt they were getting their money's worth. I watched closely, scanning the fighters for anyone who stood out. Across the way, a man named Huang raised his glass to me with a sycophantic smile. I gave him a curt nod, but my little sister, Yuan Miao, huffed in annoyance. She told me she hated him and that our father was actually considering marrying her off to him. I remembered then that in history, Huang Yi really did become Yuan Shu's son-in-law. He had a handsome face and was an expert at flattery, which was exactly why my father liked him. My father always judged people by their looks and how much they sucked up to him. Miao Miao looked at me, her eyes pleading. She said she'd rather die than marry someone who made her skin crawl. She even jokingly asked our older sister, Yuan Wan, to take her place. Yuan Wan, being the gentle soul she was, actually considered it, saying she would endure the hardship if it saved her sister. I frowned and cut them off. I told them that here in Huainan, we were the masters and Huang Yi was the servant. There was no way I would allow my sisters to be used like that. As long as you don't want to marry him, no one can force you, I told my sisters firmly. Not even our father. I'll handle him. Yuan Miao's eyes crinkled into a smile. She looked relieved. She raised her cup toward me, her face glowing. Brother, I knew you were the best. Here, let me toast you. A young lady shouldn't be drinking wine, I said, reaching out and snatching the cup from her hand. I poured her a cup of sweet honey water instead. She pouted, but I turned my attention back to the arena. The competition was moving fast. 2 groups had already finished, but I hadn't seen anyone truly impressive yet. Most of them were just street brawlers with a bit of muscle. Down in the staging area, a group of 3 men stood together. One of them had twin blades strapped to his waist. He was rubbing his hands together, looking bored. Young Master Yuan put on such a big show for this martial arts assembly, but the talent is pretty weak, he muttered. Liao Hua, you and Big Chief Zhou don't even need to step up. I, Pei Yuan Xiao, could sweep this whole lot by myself. The man speaking was tall and dark-skinned with a thick, bushy beard. Beside him, a younger-looking man shook his head. Huainan is full of hidden talent. Don't be careless, Liao Hua warned. If we win, it's great. But we come from humble backgrounds, bandits, to be honest. Will young Master Yuan actually give us a chance? These 3 were the leaders of Wunyo Mountain, Zhou Tsang, Liao Hua, and Pei Yuan Xiao. They had ridden hard from afar, just for the chance at the prize money and a future. Zhou Tsang, the largest of the 3, grinned. The Yuan family values their reputation. They called this the first under heaven assembly. If they don't follow through on the rewards, they'll lose face. And the Yuan family loves their face. Next group, take the stage, the announcer yelled. Zhou Tsang stood up and stretched. Let's go. Time to work. As soon as they stepped onto the platform, the atmosphere changed. These weren't just common thugs, they were warriors. When the signal started, Zhou Tsang let out a roar that sounded like rolling thunder. His arm muscles bulged as he threw a massive punch at the nearest fighter. The man didn't even have time to blink before he was sent crashing to the floor. Zhou Tsang didn't stop. He charged through the crowd like a wild bull, knocking men left and right. The audience gasped. "Who is that black-faced giant?" someone shouted. "He's terrifying." I leaned forward, my interest finally peaked. "He's strong," I whispered. Even if he wasn't a famous general yet, his raw power was undeniable. If I could recruit him, this entire event would be worth it. And his two companions looked capable, too. It was a buy one, get two free deal I couldn't pass up. I turned to Yin Xiang. "Tell the officials to keep a close eye on those three. I want them." A few more rounds passed. True masters weren't like cabbages. You couldn't find them everywhere. But then, in the 10th group, another man appeared. He was young, tall, and straight-backed. He wasn't as rough-looking as Zhou Tsang, but his muscles looked like forged iron. He moved with terrifying efficiency. Every punch he threw put a man down. He could have cleared the entire stage, but he stopped once only 3 men were left. His fist was inches away from the face of a scrawny fighter named Ma Zhong. Ma Zhong swallowed hard, cold sweat pouring down his neck. He stared at the massive fist in front of his nose. "I forgot," the young man said, his voice deep and calm. "The spots are filled. No need to hit you." Thank you," Ma Zhong stammered, nearly collapsing in relief. I pointed at the muscular youth. "That one. He's a beast. Mark him down too." To my eyes, this kid was even more dangerous than the giant. 2 top-tier talents in one day. I was hitting the jackpot. These men were already better than almost any general my father had. Aside from Ji Ling, the rest of my father's officers were mostly hacks who got their jobs through family connections. My father had been so obsessed with his imperial seal that he'd ignored the real power walking the streets of Huainan. Final group, take the stage. I wasn't expecting much else, but then a man stepped up who looked completely out of place. He was slender, fair-skinned, and handsome. He wore white silk robes and had white bird feathers tucked into his hair near his ears. The crowd started jeering immediately. "Look at this pretty boy. Did he get lost on his way to a poetry reading? Maybe he's just looking for a government job and thinks this is a beauty pageant." The fighters on stage laughed at him. "Hey, little white face, you better run now. If I hit you, I might break you in half." The youth in white remained calm. "This is a martial arts assembly. We play by the rules. Use your full strength. If I lose, it's simply because my skills are lacking." I watched him closely. His style was unique. Those feathers in his hair made him look like he had white ears. He didn't look like a brawler or a scholar. He looked like something else entirely. The gong sounded. The pretty boy moved before anyone else could react. He lunged forward, his fist striking the mocking fighter with explosive power. Bang! Despite his slim frame, his impact was even more violent than the giant's. The man he hit didn't just fall, he flew off the stage. The impact was so violent that the man smashed right through the wooden railing of the stage. He tumbled into the dirt outside, landing with a heavy thud. The commoners in the crowd scrambled back, gasping in collective shock. This pretty boy was a monster. I watched from the terrace, leaning forward to get a better look. Up close, he looked like a frail scholar, but his fighting style told a different story. It was explosive, direct, and incredibly aggressive. Every punch and kick he threw carried enough power to end a fight instantly. None of the other martial artists on stage could even stand against him for a single move. A single thought flashed through my mind. This man is a peerless general. He was the kind of warrior who could stand toe-to-toe with legends like Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, or Zhao Yun. But who was he? I ran through the names of the era's greatest fighters. Zhao Yun. No, he was still serving Gongsun Zan in the north. Ma Chao. Unlikely. He wouldn't leave the western Liang regions for Huainan. Taisher Ci. He was currently under Liu Yao. I couldn't place him, but it didn't matter. History is full of hidden masters who just never found the right lord. Even Guan Yu was just a fugitive selling soy sauce before he met Liu Bei. This man just needed his own bowl, a scout who could recognize his genius. I knew right then that I had to have him. The youth in white tossed the last opponent off the stage and suddenly stopped. He looked around, realized the stage was empty, and cupped his fists toward the official, Bougie. "My apologies," he said calmly. "I got a bit carried away, and forgot to leave 2 people standing. Bougie was visibly shaken. It had basically been 20 men against 1, and the youth had cleared the stage like he was sweeping dust. Nearby, the dark-skinned Zhou Tsang and the muscular youth looked grim. They knew they had finally met a real rival. "It's no matter," Bougie replied, clearing his throat. "You've passed. Everyone, take 30 minutes to rest. Then, we begin the second round." While the fighters rested, Bougie brought the registration list to me. I scanned the names, looking specifically for the 3 standouts. When I saw them, everything clicked. These weren't just random thugs. They were legendary names from the history books. Zhou Tsang, Su Sheng, and the man in white, Chen Dao. My heart skipped a beat. Chen Dao, also known as Chen Shuji. In my past life's history, he was the commander of Liu Bei's elite, White Feather Guards. He was always mentioned in the same breath as Zhao Yun for his loyalty and ferocity. His strength was likely even greater than my father's top general, Ji Ling. Not only was he a fighter, but he was a master of training elite troops. The second round moved quickly. We were down to 60 men, split into groups of 10. By the time we reached the final 12, the fighters were allowed to use weapons. Chen Dao stepped out with a silver spear. It didn't matter who he faced. He ended every duel with a single, lightning-fast thrust. He only broke a sweat when he faced Zhou Tsang, taking 20 rounds to finally disarm the big man. The final match came down to Chen Dao and the muscular youth, Su Sheng. Su Sheng gripped his heavy saber, his face pale with focus. "You're the strongest person I've ever seen," Su Sheng admitted. "But I won't lose." Chen Dao leveled his silver spear. "Then come." It was a beautiful display of martial arts. Su Sheng's saber was fierce and heavy, while Chen Dao's spear was sharp and precise. They moved in a blur of steel. My sister, Yuan Yao, watched with wide eyes, amazed by the skill on display. I just sipped my wine and smiled. These men were going to be the pillars of the Yuan family's future. After 40 rounds, Chen Dao found an opening. The tip of his silver spear came to rest right against Su Sheng's throat. Clang! Su Sheng dropped his saber. "I lost," he muttered, defeated. Chen Dao retracted his spear and nodded. "You are strong. It's rare to find a warrior of your caliber." The assembly was over. Chen Dao was the undisputed champion, with Su Sheng and Zhou Tsang taking second and third. Looking down the list of the top 12, I saw more familiar names: Liao Hua, Pei Yuanxiao, and even Ma Zhong. If that was the same Ma Zhong who eventually captured Guan Yu, I had hit the jackpot. Bougie stepped forward to address the crowd. "The top 12, please follow me to Taifu Hall. Lord Yuan Yao will personally award your prizes. As for the rest of you, do not be discouraged. My lord values all talent. If you wish to join his service, you will each receive 10,000 coins and excellent benefits." I wasn't about to let the losers walk away. These 400 men were the cream of the crop. If I trained them and gave them the best equipment Huainan could buy, they would become an unstoppable force. The atmosphere shifted from disappointment to joy. In these times of war and famine, a steady job with a high-ranking lord was better than a life of banditry. Every single one of them agreed to stay. Inside Taifu Hall, the top 12 warriors were seated at tables laden with rare delicacies and fine wine. Many of them stared at the food, wide-eyed. A meal like this would usually cost them a year's wages. They were hungry, but they sat stiffly, waiting. They knew their entire future depended on the man about to walk through the door. I entered the room with Yin Xiang and my guards. The warriors grew tense as I took the head seat. I could see the awe in their eyes. To them, I wasn't just a lord. I was the heir to the prestigious Yuan family, a clan that had produced top officials for 4 generations. I raised my hand and gave them a warm smile. "Gentlemen, you are the victors of today's assembly. First, let me offer you my congratulations." I kept my word. I promised rewards to these men, and I wasn't about to break that promise now. They had been fighting all day. They were exhausted and starving. I looked at their tired faces and decided to skip the formalities. "Everyone, eat first," I said, my voice warm. "Once you've had your fill, we'll talk business." It was a simple gesture, but I saw the impact immediately. In this era, most highborn lords treated warriors like cattle. They didn't care if a soldier was hungry or cold, as long as he could kill. By showing them basic human respect, I was already winning their hearts. To them, I wasn't just a powerful heir. I was a leader who actually cared. Zhou Tsang and Su Xing didn't hold back. They grabbed the food and started eating like they hadn't seen a meal in weeks. I sat there with my wine cup, smiling as I watched them. I wasn't hungry myself, but seeing these future legends feast made me feel satisfied. These weren't just guests. These were the men who would become the backbone of my future empire. Once the plates were cleared, I addressed the room. The first place winner receives 1,000,000 coins and the title of Huainan's greatest warrior. Second and third place get 500,000 and 300,000 respectively. The rest of you get 100,000 each. The room erupted. 100,000 coins was a fortune for these men. It could support a family for years. 1,000,000 was enough to buy a mansion in the capital city of Shochuan. Only Chen Dao, the champion, remained calm. He wasn't here for the money. Zhou wiped his mouth and grinned at me. Thank you for the reward, my lord. But we heard a rumor. We heard the winners might get a chance to become generals. Is that true? I stood up, my voice ringing through the hall. I never lie. The money is just a bonus for your performance today. Now, let's talk about your future in the Yuan household. If you join me, I will give each of you a master-crafted weapon and a fine steed. I will petition my father to form a new army, and you will be its officers. I will give you everything you desire. I paused, letting the weight of the offer sink in. In return, I want only one thing: absolute loyalty. The excitement in the room was electric. Weapons and horses were a warrior's soul. Becoming an officer meant they were no longer commoners. They were part of the ruling class. For them, loyalty wasn't a price. It was a code they lived by. They would gladly trade their lives for a lord who gave them glory. Zhou Tsang looked at me, his expression uncharacteristically serious. My lord, I have to be honest. Me, Liao Hua, and Pei Yuan Xiao, we've been living as bandits on Mount Woniu. Can men with our background really become officers? I don't care where you came from, I replied firmly. I only care about what you can do. As long as you are loyal, I will treat you all the same. That was all Zhou Tsang needed to hear. He had spent years drifting, a former yellow turban rebel with no place to call home. Now, he had found a master worth serving. He knelt before me, his voice thick with emotion. I, Zhou Tsang, am willing to call you master. From this day on, I swear my life to you. Liao Hua, Pei Yuan Xiao, Su Sheng, and Ma Zhong followed suit, their voices echoing through the hall as they pledged their lives to my cause. I told them to rise, welcoming them into my inner circle, but I noticed one man was still sitting. I turned to Chen Dao. You are the champion. I think highly of you. Do you have doubts about joining me? Chen Dao looked me in the eye. Talking to you feels like a breath of fresh air, my lord. Your presence is commanding. But a man like you doesn't recruit warriors just for show. You want to achieve something great. I want to know, what is your ambition? I nodded slowly. Men like Chen Dao didn't care about gold. They wanted a vision. They wanted a master whose path matched their own. The world is in chaos, I said, speaking from the heart. Warlords are rising everywhere. The people are starving, dying in ditches, or being slaughtered in wars they don't understand. It breaks my heart to see our people suffer like this. My goal is simple. I want to end this era of blood. I want to build a world where every person has enough to eat and can live in peace. I want to bring light back to the world. I looked at him intensely. Right now, I am weak. I don't have the strength to do it alone. That's why I need men like you. I believe that if we work together, one day, that dream will become a reality. Chen Dao felt the hairs on his arms stand up. He had studied the art of war not just for rank, but because he wanted to make a difference. He had finally found the man he was looking for. He dropped to one knee, bowing his head low. Chen Dao is willing to serve. I will go through fire and water for you, my lord. I walked over and personally helped him up. With your help, our great work will succeed. Now, everyone, raise your cups.